Balagan Day, election day, means kids at home. My kids are older, so slightly different. And having younger means they're going to sleep in and all that, and all those fun things. We mentioned yesterday when we were learning Tanya over the phone, Baruch Hashem, the idea, the concept of wearing white clothes, like basically getting to a very pure state, because we're learning about the Tzaddikim She'ena Gemorim and Tzaddik Gomor, right? The one who's moved evil legamrei and one who hasn't moved it legamrei. There's a minute speck of evil because he didn't hate the evil with full hatred based on his ava b'tanugim. Yeah. So there's pasukim here which I try to say once every so often, maybe even every day. And hay ruchas shalis balonim tachtonim ki tain bi koyach lavdasech liosech zosecha shkin bi mikvah shekoseh b'chol ace yuvugdech levanim. Yeah, your clothes at all times. Your clothes should be white. B'shemen al rashecha yachzor, and there should be shemen on your head, and you will not lack. So this idea, your clothes should always be white, is brought down Hilchos Tzitzis. I mentioned from Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nosson brings it down here in Lukati Halachos. The idea of bringing out a reich tov in Am Yisrael. V'yeh kli muchan lekabel nefesh ruach neshama asher nefachta bi כדי שחזר לעשית למלכות שחשפת נפשי רוחי נשמתי משם שלא אקלם בעולם הזה ולא אכבוש לעולם הבא להיות מוכן מסמון נחלים לחזס בנם אדוני לבח בהיכל כל אמן כבוד אמן. There's a beautiful tefillah that's good to know about, and by saying it, it tunes you into what we're learning, like the Madrigas of Tzaddikim, where they had such pure, and this is what they cared about. There's a certain understanding and a sensitivity of the purity of the neshama.
Right.
And that means themselves, that means others, that bringing out the neshama in themselves in the purest way, in the most clean way. And yesterday Rav Shlomo took it to another level, which was very helpful because
that was pretty amazing, no?
Yeah, and you said a good point at the end, which everyone was like, Baruch Hashem was agreeable. The idea that the only thing that Adam and Rishon confirmed was that number, the mistake. You know?
Right.
So the concept that we have to have the Torah mistakes, Torah of Eretz Yisrael, part of being in the world is that we're going to make mistakes. We're going to have miksholim, and that's going to help stand us up. So that's not so connected right now to this concept of the Tanya, because the Tanya, it's just good to make the contrast. The Tanya is talking about tzaddikim who never sin. They don't actually make these mistakes. Now, do they have on some inner level, some sort of inner Indian of elevation and fixing? Yeah, right. But it's only panemius. So it's kula panemius, whereas we're like nowhere near that. We are the Torah mistakes, and that's mostly what we're dealing with. And these, I mean, look, it says by Reb Zusha, you'd assume he must have been one of the tzaddikim, She'ena Gemorim or Gemorim, one of those levels, not a Beinani. It said about Reb Zusha that such a tzaddik, but yet he claimed himself to be the voice inside Amarishan that caused him to sin. That's how much he took it on himself, and he went around doing tshuva with his brother Noam Elimelech.
Right, is that was his Indian? Is that he was doing the tshuva for the Chilul of Amarishan?
Yeah, that was one of his avodas. So he'd go around in Golis and do tshuva, and then people would do tshuva with him eventually, until they became Baalei tshuva. But then the point is, when you get to these concepts, I think the best point we came along to help us make this a little bit more realistic for us is, one, to remind ourselves that this is like the mapping out the neshama. We haven't yet got to the levels of Rishoyim and Beinanim, which is probably more where we're at. Yeah, hopefully not the Rishoyim, but Halavai the Beinanim. That's more our levels. But at the same time, that's the point. There are different madrigas of neshamas, and each neshama is going to have its own unique experience with all these concepts. And to start saying that this guy's this and that guy's that, it's not really going to work. It's not about labeling. It's about internalizing the truth about the spiritual worlds. And once we know the truth about the spiritual worlds and the souls, then we can work hard towards achieving the ideals and the goals of becoming a tzaddik, or in this case, more likely a Beinani, which is still a huge avoda.
Yeah.
And we should be very, as I said, halavai Beinani. It's a good thing. It means Torah is never stopping from us, and we're not listening to our Yetzer Hara. We're fighting it day after day after day. And that can be a bit more shaykh, the concept of Torah of Eretz Yisrael, what we learn with Rav Shlomo. It's a bit more lefi where reality is. But it's still important to know.
That was the part I think it was like a little bit hard to understand the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. It was like exclusive to like that of Chutz La'aretz.
Yeah, because the Chutz La'aretz seems to be a more like external Torah. That's basically what it sounded like. Like we have to do the Torah mitzvahs, but it doesn't impact our inside world as much.
Interesting.
It's like Eretz Yisrael. The way I'd understand it is there's 7 lands, 7 continents.
Right.
But the point of the continents is Eretz Yisrael. That's the panemius of all the continents, of all the lands.
Right.
So when we come to Eretz Yisrael, we don't have the shlichim, we have Hashem himself. Like all the stories of Chassidus, is when you get to Eretz Yisrael, then it's the Yetzirah himself, not his shlichim. When you get to Eretz Yisrael, it's Hashem himself. As the Chabad Rebbe used to bring all the time, that it's the Eretz where Hashem's eyes are upon it, like based on Devarim.
Right.
Hashem is constantly involved with Shgacha Pratis Mamish in Eretz Yisrael. So everything that happens here is much more closely involving Panemius and Hashem Yisbarach, and
what do like
Yiddishkeit has that inner core.
The Rebbes, so to speak, like Tzvi Meyer or Richard Meyer or Talmud Rebbe. What's their like? Do they feel the same way about Eretz Yisrael too? It's almost like a
one of the
neo-Zionist, so to speak.
Yeah, I never really heard them talk about that specific language. They're very. I mean, my Rebbe makes sort of strong comments against the Medina. Like he's not. He's
a
not.
lot of them are against the Medina.
He's not a Kanoi. Like he doesn't agree with the Kanoim, like the way of burning and doing all this stuff, screaming and all this stuff.
Right.
He doesn't agree with that derech. Everything has to be al pi Torah and with ni'imus, and you have to makav people. But in terms of the actual Medina, like the fact that they were watering down that Yiddishkeit makes them an enemy of his love for Torah. If you understand,
right?
If we're talking about here,
yeah.
this love that they have for Hashem. So when you get some of these guys who are like anti-Torah. So they become an enemy of that. Now, he himself has said that you should never say a machshama about any of the people in the Medina. Like you should, because they can all do tshuva, they're all yidden, they all have a neshama, and he would daven for them. He davened, I remember one Rosh Hashanah, he did a big avoda for Gilad Shalit, for the Shofras, that he mentioned it just before Shofras, so we need to daven, and that year he became free. And, I know it was complicated and controversial.
Yeah.
And we're still dealing with that, but he wasn't talking about that part. He was just talking about the concept of a yid getting free, not talking about the other side of it. Yeah, that was his kavanah was latova, not all the other side. Yeah, but the point is that his Avos Yisrael is always the kodem hakol is the first thing, but you have to reject some of the secularism that goes together with the Medina, and that's what we're learning anyway with Rav Shlomo. So it doesn't contradict. Just they won't go into the whole. Like emphasize Eretz Yisrael as much, except B'derech Panemius. Like with Moshe Wolfson, whenever he'd come here, he'd always say from Rav Dessler, or the idea that you learn 7 times faster here in Eretz Yisrael, everything's more internalized. He'd bring the concept that you can masig much more Torah much quicker. So it was always else what it did for your avodas Hashem, being in Eretz Yisrael, the Panemius, like the fact that your Torah was enhanced. So
they also felt like the living here, you're in a higher level.
Yeah, or he'd travel around the whole country, going to all the makomas. Before he came to my son's bris, he just went to Shimshon Agibor, and he was on a high from being at Shimshon Agibor. I went with him, I think, a few times.
Where's he buried?
Shimshon Agibor is buried in Beit Shemesh, just outside Beit Shemesh.
Oh, yes, I went to...
Dan Ben Yaakov, excuse me. Dan Ben Yaakov's at the bottom, and then you drive up the hill, or walk. I've done the walk many times. You walk up the hill to Shimshon Agibor, and because I'm a Kohen, but it's outside, it's okay. So I've done the walk, and it's very special there.
Right. I never went to his cave. I went to the area where him. Well, no, that's
his father is buried there as well, Manoach as well. Shimshon ben Manoach. But anyway, the point is that the Tzaddikim
I saw the place of David and Goliath.
Yeah, David and Goliath. It's near there as well.
That's where I saw that.
But the point, and there's a lot of famous like Tanakh sites around that area, like go on and on, all the different places. But the point is that he would go up to north to Varia, go up north to Tzvat, drive around the hills there. All the Tanoim are buried up there. There's big avoda there. Rizal's Machshev, and made it time to tell us where all the Kvarim are, renew our connection to all those holy Makomis, because he knew Baruch HaKodesh. Right. Where all the places, even where the Ber Miriam was, he was able to say in the middle of Kinneret. This kind of panemius, these kind of tzaddikim, they understand the panemius of Eretz Yisrael, and this is what when they came here. This is what they emphasized. Like there was never halal during Yom. I don't even know how to say it. Yeah,
Yom Ha'atzmaut.
Yeah, Matzmaut. At least, I don't want to say anything controversial on being recorded, but the point is, they didn't machshav it as much as like.
Well, that much I understand. I'm just curious what their overall take is on the land itself. Meaning that's the part. But they're also like, no, we're living in a place where it's higher.
Yeah, the mechas, and I felt
that they're more Indian as just the Medina.
There was a spouse. It was this conversation again and again, especially with Wilson, who'd come here for 10 weeks every summer. He hasn't come now because he's old, but he should be well. But he'd come every 10
like the machlokas really is more like this Medina, which they're not so far off, right? I mean, look at him.
Well, there's issues.
And then the flip side is that I think what Reb Shlomo was saying is that it's a kli. Who was saying that?
Reb Shlomo.
No, but he was saying that in the.
It needs to be fixed. It's a broken kli.
And I was just trying to remember who he quoted. If it was, I don't think that it was Reb Ginsburg. Or maybe it was
the whole Sefer of Ginsburg, Tikkun Medina, is about fixing the broken kli of the Medina.
Right.
They don't throw it out. It can be fixed. That's his the whereas I suppose if you ask a Satmar Chassid, who Rav Wilson, for example, and Rav Sumaya, a lot of tzaddikim had shaykhs at least somewhere or another to Satmar. So when you have shaykhs to Satmar already, then you have issues with the Medina Lagamre. It needs to be like redone completely.
Right.
Like it's when Mashiach comes, it will be like done the feed the Torah, not the way it is now.
Right.
But the bottom line is, however it gets fixed or replaced or whatever Hashem decides, is it needs to come with the panemius. Because without the panemius, it's just a goof bli neshama. That was like Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch's explanation of the Yom Ha'atzmaut, the day of the dry bones, like this place of dry bones. The Tzaddik can make a joke out of that when they read the dry bones, they say that's Yom Ha'atzmaut because it's not with the neshama. Now you say that to a religious dati Sioni, he'd be very angry. Like, what are you talking about? We'd say halal with neshama. We believe in the religious Zionism. So then that's when it gets complicated. So the answer really is that we have to figure out ba'achdus that there is a neshama and there is Eretz Yisrael, and we have to find some sort of middle way or some panemius way to fix up and unite everybody. I would suggest that the true answer is just by us, instead of getting involved with all the old stories, we have to, like, as Rav Shlomo has been saying, Or Chadash, Leiv Chadash, Am Chadash. It has to be a new approach completely. It has to be the light of Mashiach. With the humility of Mashiach, the soul of Mashiach, we'll have the ability to awaken the soul level of Am Yisrael. Then all of Am Yisrael will figure out how to unite. Because it won't be old stories. You understand? If we go based on what the old stories are, hopefully we're getting to a new stage now where it's a new approach to how we can fix where we live and tune into the panemius and be able to live here with achdus and security, and the goyim will also understand the importance of us being here, because they'll see the spiritual and emotional and physical benefits it brings. By us, Am Yisrael, being in Eretz Yisrael, it brings blessing to the whole world. That's the kind of it shouldn't be you should meet Shnorim from Eretz Yisrael. We should be overflowing with blessing. So just that comment in itself already says where the issues are. The fact that we don't have shefa and there's people walking around with their hands out and asking for money again and again all day from Eretz Yisrael, it means it's not b'shleimus, obviously. If it was b'shleimus, there'd be shefa. There'd people coming here for panasa. You understand? And I don't have to tell my parents when they phone me up. Just on a nicer level, and they say, "How's it going? Like, you don't have, have you found another full-time job?" I said, "What's the point? I had a full-time job and it didn't pay enough, so I'd rather just do my own projects. Right. I'm actually probably making the same as I would a full-time job, but I need to make way more than that. And why should I talk that way? Eretz Yisrael should be triple, quadruple, 10x. It should be shefa, bountiful. Eretz Chalav Davash. I should be able to pay for them to come here and stick them in the nice hotel. I should be the macher. And I do know one or two people now who've reached that level. Right. There are some people who work really hard and have a lot of satchmaya who they're able to, have shefa and do amazing things with it.
Yeah.
It's not all sub stories. There are people, Baruch Hashem, who are matzliach here, but it's not enough. We have to really come together. I think if there's more actors, that we would be more, because David HaMelech's Eitzah was Panasa Zelazeh. If everyone would help each other with Panasa, if Am Yisrael, all the organizations, instead of being so territorial, would actually help each other, be more matzliach, and work more b'derech achdus. I've spoken to heads of organizations about this. I think if we could really come together, then it would be a whole different level of Panasa. Instead of hearing from one of our friends here who just got let go from one of the organizations because apparently they didn't have enough money, I just heard about that. Beautiful guy, great skill set, should be going flying in that organization. Why is he being let go? Well, now I didn't know I'd have to go on a job search again. Yeah, why? Because the organizations aren't working in the fullest sense. They're not united with the full focus of what we could do as a people.
80 different organizations that do the same thing.
Yeah, they could be helping each other rather than fighting over the pot. That's not the right headspace. It puts people off also.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know if you've experienced it. I'm not a rich dude, so I don't know what it's like. I mean, people who are more Tzaddick probably have experienced the fight over the shefa, and that's not. It's like this. I don't know. It's not Eretz Yisrael. It's not how Eretz Yisrael should be. And I myself feel that I'm hanging in on a level of savlana and emunah that it will change.
Right.
Okay, sorry about that whole rant. You started it. So it says, "Kifi erech godol ahavas lashem, erech godol hasina l'sitra achra amias barua betachlis." Hence, according to abundance of love towards God, so is the extent of hatred towards the spiritual sitra achra, which nurtures the physical pleasures, and the achta repugnance of the evil of physical pleasures. By the way, that would be another proof, what I said just before, that the fact that Am Yisrael should have overcome this Yetzirah not to employ other Jews. They're always seeking a cheaper labor. Why not just employ Jews? Give panasa to other Jews.
Right.
That should be just without getting into the whole security issue and all this and that. Just bottom line, you should be giving opportunities to Jews. Yeah, we have tzedakah begins at home first. It's not a racial thing. It's just these people around you have skills and they're not working fully. Give them those opportunities.
Yeah, with me now, I try only to hire Jews.
Yeah, it's a big schus. It might be more expensive, and sometimes they come with a bit more
expensive.
It's a big nesoyan, but it could be much more blessed.
Yeah,
if they're good Jews, they're people who are erlech, who are straight. You don't employ a yid who's living like a goy, because that's not going to help.
Right.
It has to be a guy who's got good values, or girl who's got good values, a woman who's got good values. Right. And then you could be rock and roll, you can make triple your income, because they're better skills, and they're potentially, you've got Hashem's blessing there, because you're helping Panasa for someone who's going to use it for Vodas Hashem, rather than just use it to go get drunk on the weekend or something.
Yeah, that's true. Except for my Chinese workers.
Well, they're really hard workers.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
I also wouldn't want Jewish people to do the work they do.
That's fair enough. There's room for everyone. There's room for everyone. But the problem is we shouldn't ignore these opportunities right now to switch a little bit the focus. Kafi erech godol ahavas Hashem, the abundance of love towards God. Kach erech godol asina. So the whole thing, this tremendous love you have, is the extent of hatred towards the sitra achra. So you see how it goes together. See, the more you love Hashem, the more you have repugnance for the evil physical pleasures. And obviously that means physical pleasures, it becomes odious. I gave that example of diarrhea in the bathroom, excuse my language, but that is, the Tanya brings that as an example if someone does a sin. He's actually taking Chas V'Shalom, the king's head, and putting it in the bathroom, in the toilet. In the toilet, that remember that film, Train Spotting? You ever saw it? Never saw it? So the guy drops his heroin in the toilet. And heroin is something, and it was one of the worst toilets in history, like one of those ones, public ones that never been cleaned. Ugh. Years and years of just disgustingness. And because he's such an addict, he'll put his hand inside. And he goes into this whole trippy moment where he's inside the toilet, because he's tripping, because he's completely overtaken by this heroin. It shows the extent of the addiction. So this is what, Chas V'Shalom, someone's putting the king's head into the toilet, the worst of toilets. That's really how disgusting sin becomes. That's what, or physical pleasures even. It doesn't even say sin, because remember, we're dealing with Tzaddick and Gemorim.
Right.
Yeah, physical pleasures become so disgusting and low. For abundance is much exact opposite of love as is hatred. So it becomes very clear, this balance. This is, remember, you touched on that pasuk, Ki hem zeh le'umas zeh. We don't usually see this we usually see this in the form of a wrestling match in the Yetzer Tov
Right.
Yetzer Hara. Here we're seeing it in the highest madrega of a tzaddik within himself has this tremendous love and this tremendous hatred all in the same.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ways you understand these contradictions, because it's hard to understand when we have avenue, we have these concepts inside of us, but there's also this idea that you have the right side of the heart, which would be like the Avos Hashem, and the left side of the heart, the Sina of Ra.
Right.
There is a way to have using this concept of two hearts to both serve Hashem.
Right.
That's the concept. Like the idea, it says later on in the Tanya, that it brings the Zohar based on Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon, that he was able to mourn over the Beis Hamikdash, he was able to have Simcha. How can you have both at the same time? Simcha and Veilus? The answer is, it depends which side of the heart you're talking about. On the right side, he's Simcha, that he's loving and he's doing what's in Hashem. On Tisha B'Av, he's mourning for Hashem. He has Simcha, that he's doing the what's in Hashem, but at the same time, he's going to Veilus and he's sad.
Right.
He's doing Tinchat Sos, but he's with Simcha. He's doing, mourning over the Beis Hamikdash, but it's with Simcha. He's serving Hashem. There's this contradiction and balance that it's hard to conceptualize because it's very deep and doesn't really make sense logically. But it's a Metzias that Am Yisrael live with and have always lived with. And Tzaddikim are on the highest level of it, but they have a tremendous love and a tremendous hatred at the same time towards the physical things. Okay, and that's, the love is towards Hashem, obviously. So they're loving Hashem. I don't know if Chaim Miller says anything interesting, but the incomplete tzaddik, whose love of delight is imperfect, must be also lacking in a hatred of evil. This is what we ended off saying.
Yeah.
He has some tiny speck of evil.
If you detest the idea of smoking because it is damaging to your health, you will never be repulsed by somebody actually smoking. They go hand in hand.
Rav Arush, he hates smoking. Hates it.
Yeah.
We sat once in Miami, and there was a wealthy crowd of guys sitting there, and he just made fun of smoking for like 10 minutes. I recorded it. I've got it on a podcast.
That's hilarious. Reverse is like next level.
He sat there in Miami, and there was other things. We were there to fundraise and sell books and get him build his sites and all this. We had other intentions as the management and stuff, but he just sat there for 10 minutes and just went into this whole thing that smoking is avodah zarah and like really strong language, and I've got it on recording. It was one of my favorite recordings.
It is. I don't smoke. I used to smoke. It's a form of avodah zarah for sure. If you think about any.
I played it to my son once who smokes, and I think he said he hears, but it's hard to go from the mind to the heart on that one.
Right, exactly.
When you're already into it.
When someone's in it, they're in it. It's telling them it's avodah zarah is not going to change anything. It's only going to make them smoke more.
But it was cool that he went to Miami
once
to
you get out
say
of it,
these kind of things. It's part of his, so they can do this. They come to the places and they see a certain avodah zarah or something, some chalishus in Yiddishkeit, and they're not going to be afraid to say it.
Right.
Like he one time he went to South Africa, and he started telling them they're like really strong language because they weren't keeping Shabbos properly. Some of the people there, and he just went off on it. And the translator, Diane God at the time, told me this story. He said he was translating him, but he was like looking at the audience, and they're just getting more and more upset, and bothered. And the Yetzer Hara for the translators to change it. Right, yeah. Change it, sweeten it a little bit. Yeah. But his klal is, with Dayan Elgod being a Talmud of the Rav Arush, and being bottled to his Rav, and I've seen that's how he is. That's what he's the only rabbi who's still sort of working there on his level. Over the years, a lot of people have gone through that place. One of the reasons he's still there is because he's bottled. He's able to bottle himself. So he literally will just stay quiet, his own voice, and anything he's feeling, and just translate. And even if it's offending everyone in the audience, and it did, and people were upset, but he had to say the word to the rabbi.
It happened. We went with my chaver from Shul in New York. We went to Gamliel, and so he was. So he was giving pretty hard muster to the guys. Yeah. And to myself as well, and he was Gamliel was getting nervous because the person who was translating for him.
Starting to change it a little bit.
He was nervous. He was changing it up, or he was changing it up, or dialing it down a little bit.
They can sense.
And so he instead had his shamash replace it. Yeah. He was ripping into everyone. He was Oh, it was gewaldic. I loved it.
I've translated Rav Arush a few
I took
times.
it for myself too.
Yeah, I've translated him a few times, and thank God when I did, it was always positive stuff. It was always about the neshama. One of the best times I translate. It's on video on YouTube. I can send it to you if you're interested. It's me sitting in a rehab of Rav Arush, translating Rav Arush for a meditation for the guys in detox and rehab for Gedaliah Spencer's institutions. It was amazing what he said. It is proper Chochma Elyon. Like he has, and this for these people, like going through the 12 steps, the way he explained, like a meditation, or what's the word when you say out a mantra. It was so what these guys like. I mean, I grew from it amazingly. It was amazing. So I'm just saying, like, this is something we should mechazikin, the idea of strengthening the neshama. That was the whole thing. I'll send you the video. It's amazing. I've got it on. I recorded it and videoed it as well.
Easy, man, easy.
Yeah. Tzaddick she'enu gomo hishsina she'enu soina sitra achra b'tachlis hasina. The incomplete tzaddik is he who does not hate the sitra achra. The klipa with an absolute hatred. Gam kain bara b'tachlis. He also does not find evil physical. It's absolutely repugnant. Look, he doesn't like evil. Yeah, he hates evil. He just doesn't hate it with tachlis. You hear the levels. These are very subtle. We should once again be a tzaddik she'enu gomo, such a big madrega. We'll be like the Golod of our time. Yeah, the biggest rabbi you ever met, the biggest tzaddik, whoever you imagine that is in the last 100 years. You'd think about, this is holding on this level.
Well, I imagine like Reb Chaim Kanievsky was someone who was just like, to say he's a tzaddik gomer is a big statement, but he was like, in certain inyanim, you just see he was so removed from reality.
I remember once
he's living in a different generation.
There's an even better example, just in terms of like it was more revealed. Like because with Chaim, you don't always know what was his inner thoughts, but it was more like halacha and musa, different approach. The Satmar Rav, for example, he was once in a Moetzes Gedolos, like where he came in, and they were all talking about different shitas, and he obviously had his shitas, and he got up and he said, "Look, I hear what you're saying," because they're all saying, quoting Chazal. They also know Psak, it's not like they have Masorah, he has his Masorah. But he said, "I'm the only one here who's Shomer Bris from since he came to the world and never spilt seed. So that gives me extra authority over all of you." Like nobody could say that. Yeah, that means he's never even like had a tipa come out. Yeah,
wow.
So he felt that gave him clout to Alpi Torah, Alpi Panemius, Alpi Ruchnius. That when he's saying Torah, it's from the emes.
Wowie.
So when you start thinking about such madrigas, and it wasn't that long ago, so we understand that there's the people around who just have hatred towards evil. You can very much picture that with the Satmar Rav, for example.
Maybe the Yanuka. You know the Yanuka?
Yeah, I don't know. I never went to him.
You never connected with him?
No, I mean I work for Zera Shimshon, so Zera Shimshon, they've had many meetings with him.
Who's Zera Shimshon?
The Zera Shimshon shir.
No, I know. I'm saying who's specific. It's an organization.
Yes, organization.
So and that's Charles.
Charles, Charles employs me. He's one of my projects.
Charles
I do a lot of marketing for a lot of people.
And Charles,
so I do for his organization, like him and the rabbi there, and they go a lot.
There's a rabbi also.
Yeah, Rav Yisrael Zuberberg. He's a big rabbi he's Rav Simai's cousin or nephew or something.
Interesting. Okay.
And he has a whole story what changed his life, the Zera Shimshon, and he's very close.
Very connected to the Yanuka.
Yeah, so they go a lot to the Yanuka, and there's loads of videos and pictures that I posted for them.
Charles also?
Yeah, Charles is one of these guys that gets around. Like a lot of Tzaddikim is very connected to Tzaddikim. He makes a big effort when he comes back to Eretz Yisrael to go to Tzaddikim and connect to Rabbonim. And the Rav there at Zilberberg has been to every kind of Rav. I'll show you the website that you go to at the Zera Shimshon, or ZeraShimshon.com. I've been working on this for like the last year or so, a bit less than a year. You go there, you see loads of pictures of all the Gedolim that this Rav Zilberberg went to get, and one of the main ones is the Yanuka.
Wow.
And based on the stories I hear, based on friends who've gone to the Yanuka, it's a black went to the Yanuka, lots of people have gone to the Yanuka. I'm personally, once the Tzaddik starts trending, I'm less interested.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Because I find that then it becomes like a whole like photo op rather than actual you connecting to the Pneumius of a Tzaddik. I was by Rasimaya before anyone talked about it. I was by Morgenstern before anyone talked about him.
Right.
Like maybe Rav Moshe Weinberg was talking about Rasimaya when I was connecting with him, just about,
Rav Moshe Weinberg is like huge into his Rav Sassoon.
Yeah, Reuven's son. Yeah,
he like.
Yeah, with Shlomo talks about him as well. But once it starts trending, I can't.
I don't think Rav Sassoon is
I don't
trending.
like the whole. No, I don't like the whole fan.
He's young.
club,
You ever meet him?
Like so it's like you have like this list and you have to tick off.
Right.
I can't. I mean, it's better than not going, but it's just.
Have you ever met or seen Rav Sassoon?
I've not met him. No.
He's like. I don't know. He looks like he's 35 years old.
Yeah, he looks really young. I saw pictures of him.
I don't know how old he actually is. He has like this like high pitched voice. He's like teeny. He's like short.
Isn't he? Wasn't he a student of the Chelbon?
I think so.
Because the Chelbon stood out to me. I never went to him.
He's the most like ernst. He's like, and Rabbi Weinberger is in love with him. Like when we were here in Eretz Yisrael a few years ago with him, maybe 2 years ago, and Rabbi Sassoon joined us for Shabbos. Like, Rabbi Weinberger, when Rabbi Sassoon was giving over shir, he was like holding onto the table.
Wow!
You saw him; he was like holding onto the table because he was like
so happy.
I think he was just like he was lifting off. He was like he was holding himself down on this world. He almost flew to the next sphere. It's like he was. So everyone kept talking about it. He was just like he was like holding on. He was so intensely.
That's what it's about. When you find a tzaddik, it has to do that to you. That's the panemius. That's the nakuda. It's not about what people are.
I needed to reach out to Rabbi Weinberger about that in too.
It's not just about. It's not just about what people are talking about. It's great. People are talking about Tzaddikim. They should be talking about, and it should be Garabas just by the Yanuka, and that picture went around, and it's great. And they're playing the piano together, or whatever they're doing. It's great. I'm happy. Shalom Yisrael. But Bidam is everywhere you look. See another video. See another Torah. But for us, we're learning Tanya now. We're talking about panemius. You have to go to a tzaddik, and you have to see if it inflames you for Avodas Hashem.
Right.
Does it connect to your inner panemius? Does it awaken your neshama to want to serve Hashem more? Like what moved Yosef Aaron so much when that video? It's gone a bit viral. I'll show you the one of him standing talking to my son. It's got like viral for Jewish world or for his world because he's like just started a YouTube channel like a few weeks ago.
Who did you do?
No, Yosef Aaron. So he's not like for someone who just started, it was a pretty good like moment. Yeah.
Right.
So he posted this video of him talking to my son, and this one. It's for like quite a lot of likes. For it's just him talking. One of the reasons where he spoke afterwards in the podcast. Why did he speak to my son like this? Because he said he noticed in my son the tremendous like awe and bittul he had towards the Rebbe when the Rebbe came out of the car and started speaking to my son.
The
Talmud Rebbe.
Yeah.
And that affected Yosef Aaron in a big way because he didn't feel it. He felt like a Hosh of Yid, but he didn't feel like, this bittul and this anivus and this fear, this pachad.
Right.
There's a certain, when it takes over you, then you know it's real. And so Yosef Aaron was like, wow. So then he went up to my son and said, it's amazing that, you're going, like you just come out of the army and this is how you're like, there's much more scary things in the army, guys with guns and stuff and bombs and missiles. And he's standing in front of Rebbe and it's like face trained, So like, he's like, what, ask him about it. So my son was like, because I'm just with a person now who's dedicated to Torah and mitzvahs and Shabbos and all the things that I haven't been able to do fully the last 4 months. And then that's when Yosef lost it. He's like, wait a minute. You've been doing your avoda also, and that was the whole point of this speech. Meaning you've been doing your avoda. Don't underestimate who you are. But nevertheless, it affected Yosef when he saw the effect that a tzaddik has on you. That's the point. It has to affect you in a way, not in a like now I can go tell all my boys. We'll make it for bring. And I saw this rabbi, Like it has to be like inside. Like I personally feel like I'm makusha to these people. That's the kind of. But even if I don't look as much like I am anymore these days, like I'm not wearing the Breslov flag or Chabad's flag and walking around, going, it's inside connection that affects me. Like the Tzaddikim affect my sim, affects my Shalom Bayis, affects my chinuch. They become, in a good way. They elevate you, and the fact that you're connected with them, they elevate your decisions because you see a dogma of someone who's over Hashem, be'emes.
Right.
And it changes it. So one of the things that we're learning here is that they hate the evil. So that's a harder thing because in our liberal world, in progressive world, how can you hate things? Hating is negative.
Right, hating is negative.
But when it's hating evil, it's good because evil is nothing to do with emes. And therefore there is room for it in Yiddishkeit. Because Sumer Rabba say tov, you have to run away from evil and do the good.
I was seeing that today. That was like this is the whole Indian. I'm going to talk about hating evil.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because that's what initially right after the whole October 7th, like Shlomo's main thing was hate.
Yeah.
Like we need to understand, like we learned through Kahana's Sefer on like hate, on sinna, on revenge. And here we see that
but it's all the Shem Shemaim. It's all the Man Shabbat.
Right.
It's based on a very high source. Once again, this is what we're learning here.
Right.
But Kana said the same thing. He didn't go off and start beating up Arabs in his words. That wasn't what he was talking about. He was talking about connecting to the Derech of Tzaddikim, of Leman Shema Bahava causes you to hate this evil that they're bringing into the world.
Right.
It's coming from a pure source.
Like if you really like think about it, it's like this is not PC as we call it, right?
Yeah.
V'chol ma shehu me'asitra achar atzadik gomer hu so na'o v'tachlis hasina.
Yeah, and that's based on a pasuk.
He hates, right? He hates from the tachlis of hate. Right? Is that's how you would really translate?
Absolute hatred.
That's not what he says. Completely and utterly detest.
What does he say down here?
Which is not really.
I want to see the old school. I always like the old school.
That's not really the. I mean, it's. I guess
he says finding no enjoyment in human pleasure, and then he says for contempt is as much the opposite of real love as is hatred.
Yeah, but like if you really want to translate this correctly, this is sinna, v'tachlis hasina. It's like it's like
double
sinna
lashon.
makaf. It's like
it's double lashon. David
it's
Melech
like you're hating it from the root of hate.
It's in Tehillim.
Can you imagine telling someone that, like, I hate you with the root of hatred.
139, 22, 139. It's a psalm. It's David Melech Mashiach. How are we going to get to the end? It's the end of Tehillim. We get to the end of Golas. It has to be with this kind of hatred.
Just how
used for kedusha. That's what's happening right now. We're having to do it, even though we're in a
world. We have to learn how to hate again.
Right, in the right way. Yeah.
Hate in the right way.
Have the common in the right way. All these things that are very controversial, we have to do it. L'fi Ratzon Hashem, L'fi the Torah Kedosha, and it's based, and we're learning it in Tanya. Chabad, where you think Chabad are like this fuzzy love all of Am Yisrael. Come have a l'chaim, come to my home. You think of all this ava that Chabad is so busy with, but the Rebbe himself, the Bavitcher Rebbe, the Balatanya, all the way down to the Rebbe Shlita. The Rebbe. The Rebbe's outside.
Slip, right?
Yeah. Tachlis sinas and asayim, says David Melech. Oyevim ha'ili. It's a pasuk in Tehillim.
Sinna, right.
Yeah, double lashon.
Wow. Yeah.
This is David Melech.
It shows like where that klipa is. Like my friends who were here last week, they went down to one of the kibbutzim, like on the border of Gaza. It was like
I think I remember
maybe Beirut or whatever it was, one of those.
I remember you telling us. Yeah.
And the lady who was showing them around, who was a resident of that place.
Yeah,
said like, I still
they want to
either she still does it or she still will do it. Like take these, Yamach Shamom from Gaza and bring them to the Israeli hospitals. And she's like, even though these people are animals or whatever, I don't know the lashon she used, I still think it's the right thing to do.
My wife goes to the hospital all the time. She works among the Ramadan. She says it's filled with every kind of people, not just Jews. Everyone, and that's how the Jews look. We healed Cinema. He was dying. If it wasn't for us, he'd be dead.
And it's like so treif.
It's so
treif. Imagine. I think
we're the most non-genocidal people. We're the opposite.
I know. Well, that's the problem.
Overly compassionate.
We're treating the future Nazis.
Yeah.
It's like we're doing it again. We're healing.
It's like, I remember one time hearing a story. I don't know if
not
it's
future Nazis.
Esther Youngrice, I think, or one of these Tzaddikas. She remembers seeing a Machshamo, when she was in Europe before he became like fully powerful.
Right.
And she saw him, and she always saw in her head when she saw him, like it was an intense moment. It wasn't like a simple goy. Like he was an intense. It was an intense person.
He was like Darth Vader.
Yeah, it was like seeing someone like on a mission, like crazy man.
And he had kochos. So it wasn't like
So he's seeing this Russia Machshamam, and she's thinking to herself like, I could have put a bullet in his head at that point. That would have been game over, Holocaust. Yeah, like if someone would have just taken him out. But there was like a Ratzon Hashem about his evil. Like it had to sort of manifest for some reason.
Right.
And
it's like Paro.
Like it was, there's like sometimes you can get caught up in like the power that these people wield, that Hashem's given them for that time period.
Right, if you
It
look
will
at-
dissipate, it never lasts.
Right.
There's no kiyum for it because evil destroys itself. But
Right.
it's for that one, when it's on the rise, it's on the rise.
Yeah.
But it comes down fast, like Haman and
Right.
all these people, the whole thing, what he built, came down so
Haman
quick.
and Paro and
All undone so quick. You know,
yeah.
the Germans are going out their way to show their support for Israel more than other people because they know what their history. They're not stupid. Yeah.
He's a YY.
I remember my grandma, every time you mentioned German, she'd spit.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
She wasn't, it's not she went through the Holocaust, she was living in England in a nice lifestyle.
Right.
But still, it was part of their hinuch.
It was like an Indian, in New York at least it was, like nobody got German cars.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, it was like no one had a German car.
Yeah, it seemed like New York, much more Holocaust survivors than in England.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Interesting.
Yeah, because
Like
I didn't
no
grow
one
up with that
dared
whole Holocaust
touch the
survivor
German
around
car.
me.
Only the Sephardim. I remember as a kid, the only people who were allowed to have German cars were the Sephardim because they didn't go through the Holocaust.
Yeah.
They were in their own.
Well, seemingly. There was an
Seemingly, right.
attempt by Machshemot to
There
go
was an attempt.
through
They almost,
Africa and through to Israel. And they did pretty far. They went pretty
but
far.
they went in through Africa, but after that, it just kind of started to fall apart. But so they were the only ones, and like people did not go near a German car. There are people who wouldn't even use like German. I remember this.
I drove a Volkswagen. My dad unfortunately bought one for me, and as a present when I was 17, 18, when it was, I crashed it. That was the car I crashed. That's one of the reasons why I don't drive. But on the keys, it had AH initialed.
Right. Oh,
Still
wow.
had the AH, and this is talking about in the 80s, 90s.
That's so
How could it be on the keys? It still had AH.
Right. Volkswagens meant the people's car.
Yeah, but how could it be that it still had the AH on the key? I should have taken a picture back and then. I didn't think about it, but I remember showing people in Chabad. I said, look what it says on the key of my car. Like, I don't feel comfortable with this, AH.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So, and we know what that means, AH.
AH, of course.
Shem Shemenu. Shane's Amias B'Tachlis called Koch and Shah Eza Shamitz Ahava V'Tanug L'Shem. As long as his hatred of Ziv are not absolute free force, he must have maintained some vestige of love and pleasure towards it. Lo Hosr B'Godim Soim Legamre B'Kol B'Kol. The filthy garments in which animal soul has been clothed, meaning the evil inclination of lusting after worldly pleasure. Remember, in Perek, Asiri, we're in the 10th Perek, we're learning now in the middle of the Perek, that the point is the filthy garments have not been completely shed from it. Therefore, too, the evil of the animal soul is not actually being converted to good. But still, it still has some hold on the filthy garments, desires for pleasure in which the animal soul had previously clothed and expressed itself. So you're seeing there's some sort of vestige of love and pleasure towards the animal soul. Like I know, like sexually, I'm sure the biggest tzaddik in the world is still going to have to figure out how to not get caught up in the moment of physical pleasure.
Right.
Because it's so in the air before Mashiach comes the wrong way.
Right.
There's nus. So even if he's done everything he can, it's just like chutzpah yazgeh. How are kids so chutzpahdik? Yeah? How? I brought up my kids, they had no internet, no TV, no nothing. They didn't see anything. How is it they still were chutzpahdik as some secular kid who grew up with all that wrong media? How do they still have this natural chutzpah that no generation ever did before? I would never talk to my father the way my kids did. And my kids grew up with Yiddishkeit and Cheder and everything else, and Shula and all that, and Yiddish and Starkheit and Tzaddikim. How did they end up with such a chutzpah? Because it says before Mitzvah comes chutzpah yazgeh, there's going to be increase in chutzpah, and it's in the air. They're going to pick it up, even if you don't put a phone in their hands. They're going to find the Yetzirah, the chutzpah, the azus of either for kedusha or for not. Bokatov. So it's going to be there either way. And now the point is you have to use it, obviously, once again. So I would say, like, the biggest tzaddikim, there's still going to be some vestige. It can't be there saved of this. It's in the avir, it's in the water, it's everywhere. What are they going to do? Yeah?
Right.
As much as they protect themselves, it's just part of, even the way the Chassidim would talk to the Rebbe. Yeah?
Right.
My Rebbe used to talk about one of his Chassidim who spoke to him with such derech eretz. He was a Chassid of Bobov. And the Bobov Rebbe, and he used to talk to the Rebbe. He had like a whole nusach, and how he'd write a letter, and how I just like fun of the Rebbe. How you doing, Rebbe? Like some schmuck. Yeah, I don't have any of the right Lashonis. I don't know how to talk to a rabbi, yeah? Because I'm coming from, when they do benching, they ask the Kohen, it's Adareinu, Mareinu, Galeinu, Yosreinu, I don't know. All these Lashonis. I don't know how to say all that stuff. I always have to ask the guy next to me before the benching when they ask me to do it. Quickly, tell me remind me of the Nusach, yeah?
Well, they have like a hold, the Mareinu, the Rabbeinu.
Yeah, there's a way of talking to a tzaddik, yeah? Like a covered, but like a sort of a lost art for many people, yeah?
Yeah.
There's a certain sensitivity to what it means to talk to a god or a Torah.
I have a childhood trauma from that stuff.
Oh yeah,
like because in yeshiva they force you to speak in this way that's just like you're talking to her like you would be like tense. Does the Rebbe want to give a shir? Yeah. Does the Rebbe want to teach us a little bit of the Rebbe want to give us extra recess?
Rebbe, yeah.
Does the Rebbe want to give us extra recess? And it's like it becomes like just like it almost becomes this like repetitive nonsense that you're like talking to your 11th grade Rebbe that way, and you're just like, and they force you to do it.
My Chabad Shlich finally responded to me in London. This Levi Sudak, I wrote initially Rabbi, and then I changed it to Levi, and then he responded. If I would have said Rabbi, I think he would have just ignored it. He doesn't want to be called rabbi, even though he's probably one of the biggest rabbis around. Yeah, the evil is nullified in the good by reason of its minuteness, and it counts as nothing. Yeah. Indeed, he is called a tzaddik, v'ralo. Yeah, remember we learned in Gemara Brachas. Yeah, v'ra v'kufov levatalo, subjugate and surrender to him. So he doesn't do any of the evil. His love is not complete, because if it would, therefore, because then he would hate the evil completely, and he would have no evil left. Since he still has a little bit, he's tzaddik Zeralo, he's a tzaddik Veralo, and he's a tzaddik she'eino gomer.
Right. So here on the little note here on the bottom, he explains that tzaddik she'eino gomer doesn't mean he's not like a complete or incomplete tzaddik. It means it's something else. It's a person has completely mastered his dark side, which
dark side of the Force.
The term incomplete refers not to his status.
It's like the difference between Yoda and Luke Skywalker.
Right, to the intensity of his love to God.
The
more you love God, the more you'll be repulsed by evil. Yeah. There is no neutral ground. Yoda
would be the tzaddik gomer, and Luke would be the tzaddik she'eino gomer. He'd probably be more of a Beinoni actually, because he was still going back and forth all the time.
No, Luke was really more towards the light. His father, his father was mamash.
He was a Russia.
His father was a Russia. He gave into that the Ralo, and
the fears, the fears,
consumed
and the
by the Sitra Acher.
I know if you get me off in Star Wars, I'll go. I mean, the rest of the universe went a bit.
Yoda went
off the derech a little bit, but
because Disney got involved, and then the whole thing became one big giant Sitra Acher.
But before that, there was some sort of like panemius going on.
Yeah, it was very panemiustic. During that period of time, all those movies had such panemiustic. Yeah. And then once the early 2000s, and it's just
too much money and greed.
It lost its
polluted everything.
It's like the Matrix. Such an awesome Matrix was such a side.
Yeah. And then even though the guys I wouldn't go to their shir, if you know what I mean.
Right, for sure.
The two brothers, whoever they are. Okay, Gama Havud Hashem Eina B'Tachlis. So the love of Hashem has not been transformed completely, even though it's a huge level. Says the Tanya Vita. Hine Medregazu Machlokas Larabas Medregas. Now this level of incomplete tzaddik is the type divided into myriads of levels. See, this is what we mentioned yesterday. Each person can have his own level. Inyan chinas miyat hara v'neshama achad ma'arbi yisodis rhyme. So it's good. We now have a source. Where does it come from? That little miyat hara is consisting of varying in the quality of minute remaining evil from where? From the four elements. So let's just read this last section and we'll end on this. Yeah, it says in one tzaddik, the remaining evil may consist of element of water. Another, the evil may consist of spark element of fire. Like I told you, that rabbi got angry a little bit. Each person going to have his nakuda. The Alter Rabbi will now describe a quantitative subdivision, depending on the degree to which the evil loses its identity within the good. In one side, the vesicle may be such that the proportion of good to evil could be described 60 to 1. Therefore, the evil on another side may be more minute, so by a proportion of 1,000 to 1. So there's different levels of bottom and miyat. There's a level of chad v'shishim, of chad v'elaf, or however they say it, elofim, or whatever.
Right.
Chad v'elef, however they say it. The point is that so too with the concept of kosher, non-kosher. So you have 60 parts kosher and 1 part non-kosher, or 1,000 parts kosher and 1 part not kosher. So it depends on each tzaddik, she'eina gomer, which level of meatness and bottle is. Because it is bottle. It's not going to impact on his life, but it's there. And it means on a subtle level, on a pnimis level, he's not a tzaddik gomer.
Right, wow.
And that's how in being bitul mediyuta. The subject also takes account of degree which the remaining is nullified because of its minuteness. Shishim al derech mashul, or aleph ravava kiyotze, or derech mashul, hein bechina sadiq and rabin shebechol adoris. These various levels in the ranks of incomplete tzaddikim are the levels of numerous tzaddikim found in all the generations, of whom to belong the incomplete tzaddik. As we find in the Gemara, 18,000 tzaddikim stand before the Holy One, basically. So there's quite a lot of these guys, apparently, in every generation. 18,000 of tzaddikim she'eina gemorim. Yeah, that's much more than I would have imagined. 18,000 tzaddikim she'eina gemorim. Obviously, they're not revealing themselves as much nowadays. Ach, Almighty Tzaddik Gomer, Shama Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Ve'isi b'ni Aliyah, Ve'im be'utim. This is important because only around complete Tzaddik Gomer, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai spoke about them. I've seen superior men, B'nai Aliyah, which is funny. My friend called his website b'naialiyah.com because there's not many of that, but there are very few. The reason the complete tzaddik are called B'nai Aliyah is that they convert evil, make it ascend to holiness. One of the ways my friend, by the way, makes this very real is it's a lot to do with how much you mavattled your ego and how little self is involved in everything. It gets to that point where there's no self anymore. You're just like a translucent veneer of Ratzon Hashem in the world, if there could be such a concept.
Scary proposition. Right, imagine I approached someone and said, you have an opportunity, I give you this pill, you become a tzaddik gomer. Oh, okay, what's a tzaddik gomer? You become a completely mamash, like a thin veil of just love and Ratzon Hashem. You don't have a single, you've destroyed your Yetzer Hara completely. I think people wouldn't be like, yeah, I'll take it. There's the Yetzer Hara is so strong that you don't even strive to that. Like that in itself is the trick of it, right? It's like as a kid.
And that's the problem.
Today I think it's become more. Today, like we're not so much that. We think
some of the voices of Yetzer Hara is us. That's the problem. We have to do such a
right. We think it's us.
Such a clarification, and this voice is not me.
Yeah.
This is my lower voice talking.
Right.
This is my Yetzer Hara voice. It's my ego voice.
Right.
And we have to mevar it all the time inside ourselves. And you go up and down, you go round and round, you're all the time getting lost in all this stuff. That's why it's so important to have a Rav or a Tzaddik, someone who's outside of yourself, who doesn't have the gears, to talk to you in a real way, to just make some clarity over here.
Right. It's like my kids and even myself, as a kid, even up until recently, past maybe 10 years, we talk about the idea of Mashiach, and to many people, they're like, my son was like one time, like, I don't want Mashiach to come. I was like, why? Like,
my son said that.
He's like, then
my daughter said that.
There won't be any video games.
Zalman's scared. He said, I want to play football. I want to have fun.
Right, I want to play sports.
That's what my son said.
Sports,
My son said this.
There won't be video games.
I said, no. Don't worry. You're still going to have fun, but it'll be a very ruchnius fun. It'll be like a whole other level of it.
I told my oldest son, I was like, because at the time we didn't know we were making Aliyah. We had no plans.
We weren't allowed to talk about Mashiach at my table because of my youngest son. He'd get
a scary idea, And so my oldest son one time said to me, he's like,
not anymore,
I really don't want Mashiach to come. I said, why? He's like, you promised me that when the World Cup comes to New York, you would take me to the game, which I did, because the World Cup is finally coming to New York in 2026 or something, 2028. I don't know, something like And so I told him, I was like, when it comes to New York, I'll get a ticket. We'll go to the game together.
I think my brother went to it when it was in New York.
No, it was never in New York yet.
No, in America. It was in America.
Never, not the World Cup. Maybe like 50 years ago. I don't know.
No, my brother went years ago.
Could be years ago. So, but now they're doing it in New York or in America.
It has been in America before. I can Google it.
It could be like 50 years ago.
No, less than that.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't really follow soccer, so I have no idea. I just know my son said it's such a big
my
deal.
brother went. Like he was there. He was doing some work there with the World Cup. Remember, my family in that sort of business sort of stuff. like sports and entertainment. 1994.
Wow, it was in then?
Yeah.
So they're doing it again.
My brother was there.
It was in New York?
My brother's 8 years older than me, so he was like 22. He was doing some work for my dad or something.
So yeah, they're doing it in New York now. I mean, only one of the games are in New York. It's North America, really.
It's crazy to think my brother's been working with my father that long. Oh, that's nice. Someone just gave me one of these stickers. For Zoe Shimshon. It's weird, my whole contact list just went off. Don't know why. But anyway, so this
what
idea.
were you saying? Right, so the idea of that.
He ends off here. It says in the introduction to Zohar, Reb Chia wished to send to the Heikel of Reb Shimon. He had a voice come out and say, "Mein menachin dai chashuka mahafkan nohara." This is probably one of the most important lines we're going to learn the whole time. Time in berire metika adlo yasen hacha. Whichever you become from, have converted the darkness world to light, have transformed the bitterness, taste of the animal soul, and even information sweetness. Only these may enter. So the Medreg B'nai Aliyah is this beautiful concept of turning darkness to light, turning bitterness to sweetness. Only those may enter, and that's obviously the highest level of Tzaddick, Zikim, Gemurim, and B'nai Aliyah. And we're going to learn weiter about this tomorrow, the concept of B'nai Aliyah. But the main thing is we have to understand we're going back and forth between Tzaddikim She'enim Gemurim and Tzaddikim Gemurim. The Nakuda, the Nafkamina is complete transformation of darkness to light and bitterness to sweetness by the Tzaddikim Gemurim. And the Tzaddikim She'enim Gemurim, there's still a mere, tiny little residue. Does it have any influence in their life? No.
Right.
But it's still there. And therefore, when we're learning about the ideals and the panemius of the neshama, we have to map out all the levels.
Right.
Because as we said, there are 18,000 different levels of tzaddikim every generation. So we have to know there's room for all these different levels. And it's important to give us the ideal of the tzaddikim, and all the way down. Hopefully, by the end of the week, we'll be with the Yerushalyim, and eventually we'll end off focusing in on the Beinani, which is the name of this book, the book for in-betweenness. Excuse me.
In-betweeners, yeah.
Yeah, that's the Beinani.
I think I'm going to Tzafat for Shabbos.
Gewalt.
Gewaldig.
Yeah, by all the tzaddikim up there, the Arizo, and all the Kavarim, the Kadoshim. We mentioned it today.